City Music.
Yes, City Music.
What, fourth record in 5 years?
I think 4. Or there was 1 year that I did not release a record, but I think that the way it all works, it has been 4 records in 4 years.
Yeah.
I think.
I know that people make a big deal of it, but because it's unique, it's interesting. Where do the ideas come from when you've got to do it so quick like that? I mean, because I've heard some themes about this record. A loose concept of being lonely. It's a New York record, which I always feel like those two things usually go hand in hand.
Sure.
Like again, that many records at once. Are you always looking for something to kind of tie it all in together, or is this just you've been on a roll and it's been coming?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess maybe I've just been on a roll, knock on wood. But I have a very speedy personality. I think of things very quickly, and I get sick of things really quickly. So I'm kind of always making something and then putting it out and then on to the next thing.
Yeah, it's nice for these moments here that you don't have to talk about the same record for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. Always something new to talk about.
Yeah, well, about that concept, then, is that a true statement, or is that something the press came up with?
Yeah, that's about it. I wrote a record that came out last year that was very autobiographical about having just moved to LA and my life in LA, and almost in response to that, I wrote this record, which is sort of a fictitious take on a similar theme, which is just feeling kind of the way that I was feeling, but in a different landscape.
Right. And again, New York always seems to be, when someone talks about loneliness, if you're going to make a movie.
Yeah, sure.
It's going to be set in there.
Yeah. And it's ironic because there's so many people who live there.
Yeah. But hearing sort of, hearing you call up, like I will say that the song with 1, 2, 3, 4. There's so much music out there, and it's we hear so much music, and it's hard to always get that excited about something new. But I was so excited the first time I heard that song.
That's cool.
Because there's so much happening there that there's a nostalgia factor playing a part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it's it's its own thing. You got Jim Carroll, you got the Ramones, and then it's something very un-New York. I kept thinking about, and I don't know if this is probably not intentional at all, but it's C'est plein pour moi. You remember that song?
No, wait.
C'est plein pour moi.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah, it's there's a little bit of that same beat in there, but especially with the Jim Carroll and the Ramones. Like again, is there a story behind the song? Like, where does that song come from? How does it start?
That song, honestly, I wrote as sort of a joke, and I wanted it to be called #1234. I don't know why. I saw the #1234 somewhere, and I was like, oh, that'd be funny to write a song about that and make it an homage to the Ramones, because in my mind, when I think of those numbers, I think of the Ramones,
sure.
Counting off a song.
Tommy every time.
Yeah, and just launching into a song. So I was like, okay, well, I'll write a song that talks about the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll make it a punk song because that's popular in punk music. And then while I was doing it, I was like, well, what better way to make an homage to the Ramones than to just kind of fire off all their names? And then once I had done that, I was like, and then wouldn't it be funny if I used a Jim Carroll lyric from one of my favorite Jim Carroll songs to sort of tie a bow on the whole thing? And that's what I did.
And I'm so glad you did, because if you know the Jim Carroll song, it's almost like you knew it was leading there, but of course the first time you hear it, it's
right.
But there it is, and it's that fist in the ear moment.
And it's funny, not everyone knows who Jim Carroll is, and if they do, maybe they know him from Basketball Diaries or something, and they don't necessarily know that song. But a lot of people don't pick up on the fact that that's a Jim Carroll lyric right after their names, so then they think I wrote it. But the people who do, and they understand it, I think they can kind of laugh to themselves. They're like, and he's also from the same time period as, the Ramones and CBGBs and everything.
Yeah. It's a good inside thing.
It's kind of a nerdy song in that way, yeah.
Well, we're nerds.
Yeah, we're nerds. That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. The other part about this record I've heard is it's more of a collaborative record.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you're doing a solo record, because it's the Kevin Morby record and everything, I don't know. You have to give up certain places to that. I don't know, where's the line where it's not exactly a solo record anymore, that this is just a band record under your name?
There's definitely a line for that. I think this one's probably right under that line. And most of my records have been hiring different musicians to come in and, play different things and bring in different organ players and drummers and get a horn section and blah, blah, blah. But for this, it was very much like, okay, I want to make a representation of my live show, because my records have always been kind of bigger than my live show. And then I just go out with, 2 or 3 people in my live band, and we kind of have a rock and roll show. And I was like, well, I want to document that. So this record is the representation of that.
Yeah. As you look back now, and especially as you say, you've got this mind that constantly it wants to keep creating. Did the bands hold you back? Did your old bands, was that something that held you back from being able to just go full on?
Yeah, for sure. I was in the Babies for a long time, and that was my creative outlet when I was in that band. And there's just a lot of pros and cons to being in a set band, and a big con for me was just the fact that it had to be the same people all the time, and everything was democratic in this way, and you had to kind of slowly always come to decisions together, which is cool, and when it works, it works. But for me, I just wanted to sort of begin my solo career so I could try on many different suits and just have complete freedom.
Yeah. And I love the way you play with everything. Like I'm hearing you sort of play with gender roles.
Uh-huh.
There was a story on Facebook. I'm not really sure where that came with, where you kind of take the role of the wife as the narrator, or that's what it seems to me anyway. And of course, there's a song. One of the first singles, you do it as well.
Yeah. Sure. I like to play with gender like that. And also, so I wrote this from sort of the standpoint of a woman who's reclusive, living in New York. Mm-hmm. Is almost sort of like, well, how that came about is that I was writing Singing Saw, which is my previous record, mm-hmm. and it's all very autobiographical. So I was kind of like, I want to make the exact opposite of this record with the same theme. So I'm going to write it from an old woman's perspective living in New York, because I'm a young man living in Los Angeles. And things like that, it's like assignments that I give myself. And when you have a general theme, or you have a general goal, and you know what you're working towards, then you just have to fill in the gaps.
Sure.
And that's when it becomes fun. It's kind of like, I've heard writers say, you write the beginning, middle, and end, but the hard part is tying all those things together. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of being like, I'm going to write from an older woman who's a recluse living in this anonymous uptown Manhattan, that gives me like my beginning, middle, and end. And then you just have to fill in the blanks.
It's almost seemed like like a Brian Eno or Charlie Kaufman thing, where they do the wordplay, like scattering all the stuff on the table and sort of piecing it together.
And it's fun too. I mean, words are really fun.
Yeah.
It's like Scrabble, you know?
Yeah, it makes for good music. I love your music, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And we'll do this again next year when you release a double album.
That is my plan.
Is that true?
I started working on it already.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, dude.
Thanks a lot.
All right.